All right, welcome everyone. The time is now 7:00 p.m. Reconvening this meeting. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, and then a land acknowledgement by Megan Sterling. If we can please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance Thank you.
Tempe Union High School District acknowledges that our community of schools is located on the ancestral lands of the Akmol, Odom, Pima, and Peepash Maricopa indigenous peoples who have inhabited these lands since time immemorial. With this land acknowledgement, the district formally recognizes that the traditional care and keeping of these lands by indigenous peoples allow us to be here today.
Thank you so much, Megan Sterling. All right, we will continue right along with our agenda with the report from Superintendent Dr. Mendel.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, governing board members, executive team members, those of you present in the audience in person, and also our viewing and listening audience. Thank you for taking the time with us this evening. I am proud to announce that we have Corona del Sol students who were nominated in several Rocky Mountain 2022 Student Production Award categories. At last month's Rocky Mountain Emmy Awards ceremony, the winners were announced, and some of those students are able to be here tonight. When I announce your name, can you stand? So, because I know some of you are here, right? I hope you are. For the Corona Emmy recipients, news report, series or light, Caitlin Parsons. Yay, Caitlin. For the history of Ukraine and Russia. I want to see that. Multimedia journalist Leah Gunter. Are you here, Leah? Okay. Well, we're still going to acknowledge her for Good News Recap 4. So congratulations, Leah. Arts and Entertainment, Cultural Affairs, Layla Reef. Layla, are you here? Then you are going to represent all the goodness. Layla did a Black History Month 3 interracial marriage. So that was the arts and entertainment piece. And magazine program for CDS TV, Corona del Sol TV, production staff Leah Gunter, Layla Reef, Aiden Mitchell, Shannon Amjadi, Aiden McDonald, Regal Lind, Kai Phillips, Jesse Crandall, Dylan Gordon, and Maria Villaverde for season 15, episode 26. For Student Production Award nominees. So those were the Corona Emmys. You guys did a great job. Anybody else from Corona here for this? You are representing CDS, so yay. Here's what I do know about Corona students, and a lot of our students in Tempe Union for that matter, is that they're involved in lots and lots of good things and activities and clubs, so it's hard sometimes for them to take the time to come out, so I appreciate you being here representing your team. Do you want to say a few words for, or I'm not put you on that. Our Student Production Award nominees for nonfiction short form, Gabriel Madrid and Leah Gunter, for the history of April Fools and What's Bill Nye Up To, respectively. Very cool. Arts and Entertainment Cultural Affairs, again for CDS TV, production staff Leah Gunter, Layla, Bella Rios, Alyssa Acevedo, Jesse Crandall, Bryce Kelly, Kara Schulman, Fortner, and 27. So 26 and 27 got a lot of recognition. I'm going to ask you to come up in just a second. Tell us a little bit about those two clips. Is that okay? Okay, you want to do that right now? Okay, because now you've really piqued everybody's curiosity. Because we want everybody to hear at the podium. There you go. I'm sorry to catch you off guard, but this is such good information, and we want you to be known.
So I don't know if all of you guys are familiar with CDS TV. It's our broadcasting program at Corona. I'm very grateful to have been a part of it for all 4 years, and I've made some great friendships through that. And now for the specific broadcasts for 26 and 27, those were Emmy nominated, so we got to submit those for the Emmy nominations. A lot of judges from out of state, because it's a Northwestern, it's like award show, I would say. So it's like 4 or 5 different states. So judges from all over these states got to watch our videos, and it was just super cool. So yeah, those 2 specific broadcasts, I don't know why as a class we chose to do those 2 in particular, but we do try to stack all of our best content onto those Emmy broadcasts, and I think we just chose those ones.
Okay. What were they about? So just, do you recall? Because it was probably a long time ago. Huh?
Well, so all of our broadcasts are 10 to 12 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So we have like so much content. It's hard to remember just, each individual piece, but it could be like our bumpers, which are like 6-second clips in between each video. We have someone specific doing those. So they would be also nominated for that. And then we have I think the good news recap might have been on there that Leah Gunter did. So that is on there. And then I believe a couple of those other ones, like the Bill Nye, each in the Black History Month. I know that my Ukraine and Russia piece was on one of those broadcasts. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Lastly, though, for fiction, short film, short form, Leah Gunter, that whole group, Layla, Cade Kohler, William Gisselquist for Go Fish, and then high animation graphics, special effects for Aiden Mitchell for Origami Intro. So, and I want to acknowledge Ben Forbes. Congratulations to all of our students for their hard work, and thank you, Ben Forbes, because your direction and leadership and mentorship for our students for film and TV, for what you do every single day to earn this recognition. Do you have anything you want to say to Mr. Forbes?
Oh man, Mr. Forbes. He has been like a second father to me. I have nothing but good words to say about Mr. Forbes. He is an amazing teacher. God, I can't say enough good things. But I'm just so grateful to have met him through CDS TV. He cares so much for his students. I've never seen a teacher who cares more. And I'm just so grateful to have known him. I was also in student council with him and just a lot of different programs. And I'm just very, very grateful that he runs this program at Corona. He truly does an amazing thing for it.
Yeah, he's a wonderful teacher and a good human being, so you guys are lucky. And he's lucky to have you as well. So again, thank you for representing Corona with all these wonderful acknowledgments. We appreciate it. Now on the 16th, November 16th, we'll be recognizing McClintock's nominees for the Emmy winners as well. So stay tuned for that. Next, I'm going to invite Mr. Sobek to the podium. This is how we do things in Tempe Union, okay? So please join me in welcoming Michael Sobek, Desert Vista's new assistant principal for activities, to Tempe Union. Michael is a graduate from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where he completed for UMKC's nationally ranked policy debate team. While in college, he also coached for the Kansas City Urban Debate League and Kansas City Central High School. A Dobson High School graduate, Michael returned to his alma mater, where he spent 12 years in various roles, including avid coordinator, English teacher, soccer and track and field coach, and dean of students. Boy, you were prepared for your role here at Desert Vista, weren't you? At Dobson, Michael was also the speech and debate coach and Speech and Debate Association Diamond Coaching Award. And was recently awarded a Diamond recognition for coaching. In case you didn't know, the National Speech and Debate Association Diamond Coaching Award is earned when the coach's students receive 15,000 points. Speech and debate points are earned in competitions throughout the school year, but to put things in perspective, consider Desert Vista's state championship speech and debate team. And we have a member of our board who has a lot of knowledge of that, so he may want to comment in a little bit. With last year's team earning 350 points in the state tournament, you realize what an accomplishment it is for a coach to reach 15,000. So kudos and wonderful. Michael is a strong addition to the Desert Vista administrative team. I know he will make a positive impact on students and student learning. So welcome to Tempe Union. You've received several welcomes, but this is the formal welcome that we do for ours here with the board. So you have a few words you want to share?
Just very grateful to be here. I feel honored and blessed to be working for such a strong school district. I love working at Desert Vista. We've got a great administrative staff. We've got a great teaching staff. And the students are absolutely amazing. So I'm just loving getting to know everyone and fitting in. And obviously with the strong speech and debate program, I'm excited to be there and help them out, and looking forward to them winning another state championship this year as well. So.
We're going to hold you to that. Principal White, would you like to say anything? Sure.
Got to put you on the spot too.
We're just excited to have Mike at Desert Vista and for what this year is going to bring us and what he can bring to our programs. And so, thank you for supporting Desert Vista and bringing Mike to our school. So thank you.
Welcome, thank you. Do you have any family here that you want to recognize? Everyone's busy, right? Thank you, Michael. That concludes my report.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Monroe. All right, next we are into our public comment section. This is the time for the public to comment. Members of the governing board may not discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later time. Public comment is accepted in person only, and normally public comment concerning a specific item will be heard at the time that the item is addressed by the governing board. Each member of the public will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak in accordance with policy BEDH, public participation at governing board meetings. The following limits will apply: 1 through 15 speakers, 3 minutes; 16 to 32 minutes, 31 plus 1 minute. A presentation form must be completed in its entirety and given to the board's executive assistant. Individuals may use that provided, and any documentation or literature the public wishes to give to the governing board must accompany the presentation form. All right, Dr. Bueno, take it away.
Thank you, President Garcia. We have several here, so I'm going to start off with Dr. Tara Armstead. Can you please come forward?
Hello, my name is Dr. Tara Armstead. I'm actually not a Tempe resident or have a child in Tempe. I am here because of a viral video that I saw online through social media regarding one of your teachers at a high school. The reason why I decided to drive 45 minutes to come here is because not only am I an Arizona teacher dealing with the struggles of not having teachers right now, but I'm also an individual that is working with students in some of the trauma that they are receiving, whether it's at home or at schools. I actually have a copy of my book that I would like to gift you guys, where I wrote a whole chapter on what is called educational trauma. Educational trauma is not always physical abuse. It is anything that happens to a child that has a lasting impact on them. When I saw this video of this teacher, this male adult teacher, screaming in the face of this young woman, I cannot describe how much it triggered me as an adult woman. This same thing happened to me when I was in 7th grade math, and I was never good at math after that because it stuck with me of how that teacher responded to me when I simply asked them a question more than once. So I don't want to come up here and get emotional about anything. Like I said, I'm an educator myself. My hope is that whatever you do to discipline this teacher, it will have a lasting impact on your expectations as a district when you're hiring teachers, but also to let youth know that their voice matters, and it should be more important than an administrator's evaluation. I would love to have students come up and evaluate these teachers, because if they had that opportunity, that teacher would not be able to continue to do what he's doing in the classroom. So I wanted to share that because I'm in Litchfield Park. I'm 45 minutes away from here, but it's all over social media, and it hurts my reputation as an individual educator and us as a whole in Arizona. So I beg you to please allow students to speak more and give true feedback of what is happening in these schools, so that this doesn't get popular just because of social media, but they understand that they have consumer power and they should be leading us as adults in changing this educational system right now. Can I please give these copies to you? Thank you.
I'm going to take it. Thank you. Next, I'm going to call Summer Barashed. Did I pronounce that correctly? Barashed. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Summer.
Hi, my name is Summer Borashid. I don't work for the Tempe district.
I actually work in Mesa. I'm here today based off of a viral video I saw online. When I saw this video, I actually have a social media presence, and I responded to this video, and I got negative feedback on the teacher's behavior, but mostly people were coming after me for speaking and advocating for this child. I'm coming here today to say that as an educator for 6 years, I was shocked seeing this video and disappointed in the system as it is. It's a disgrace to what we do as educators. Screaming in a child's face, that's not acceptable. You have to learn what your students love and connect with them, right? As educators, this is very important. I don't think that this behavior that he exhibited was appropriate. This is not the first time, as I've read online. This has been multiple times that he has been screaming at students and not connecting with them and not doing what we do, which is connecting and making kids enjoy learning again, because we've lost that, right? As educators, we've seen students go from excited to be in class to not even want to be in class, to ditching, to not being excited anymore. And then we wonder why as educators. What are we doing wrong? And we change the system and change what we have to do. I just strictly think that this teacher should be held accountable for the things that he's already done, and should be penalized for this sincerely, because this is just unacceptable and inappropriate. And that's all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Dorian Eden.
Hi, my name is Dorian Eden, and I am coming to talk about the Desert Vista Girls Cross Country coaching. My daughter is currently a sophomore at Desert Vista, and this is her second year running cross country for DV and then also track. She's a distance runner and she loves it. This past summer, we saw incredible increases in her performance under Coach Christophas and Coach Amy. Even better, though, was the massive team cohesiveness that was created. The 2021-2022 team had very little team camaraderie between the older and younger girls. The summer of 2022 changed all of that. All of a sudden, Summer Running Club was fun. It was uplifting. The girls actually became friends and were spending time together outside of just running. Age and class didn't matter. They were a team. They arranged carpools. We knew when the new head coach was hired, Jessica Shear, that there was going to be a change, and it would be some growing pains. When she was first named, several parents were immediately concerned. There was a lot of discussion of lack of transparency about the hiring process, her lack of head coaching experience, and aloofness. Other parents approached both the school administration and this district. My husband and I did not, knowing that there's always going to be personality conflicts, and accommodating and learning to adjust to those would be a life skill. Unfortunately, we were saddened to realize that it was not just a personality issue, that there is truly a coaching issue. We were also concerned that if we spoke up in the beginning of this season, that our daughter would be ostracized. To say that our daughter struggled this season would be an understatement. She began dreading going to practice, and her emotional and mental health took an enormous toll. She was unable to run in 2 meets because mentally she just could not do it. Before the final meet, I reached out to Coach Shear and said, my daughter's really struggling, and asked for very specific pacing information because that's what she was not getting and needed from her coach. Coach said she would discuss directly with her. I'd reached out, I wanted to see, number one, would I get a response, because I know a number of other parents had reached out to the coach and been ignored or told that the coach is too busy to communicate. Ultimately, although the coach told me that she would discuss this with my daughter, she did not. Our assistant coach, Dan Beeks, discussed with my daughter and talked to her, and then Coach Shear said, oh, Beeks spoke to you, great, that's it. Ultimately, even before I reached out to Coach Shear, before her last 2 races, we reached out to other individuals asking for help in pacing. I know other parents and other girls have done this as well. This is a head coach. We should not have to go to outside people in order to get the coaching that our girls need and deserve to be able to be successful runners. There are other issues that we have in terms of communication, things that she said she was going to do that hasn't happened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Olivia Urim. Did I pronounce that correctly, Olivia? Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Olivia Urim, and I go to Desert Vista. I run on the cross-country team. I love running a lot, and the team is such an amazing community, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. We recently got a new head coach, but before I talk about her, I want to talk about this summer. Our strength training coach at DB took over during the summer since we didn't have a coach, and I've never loved running so much. He truly knew so much about running, and he was so caring and just so motivational to all the girls. He knew exactly what to tell us. He knew exactly how to help with all of our injuries, all of our pains. Any questions we had with our training, he knew what to say, and he could explain it well. And at the end of our summer training, we had a camp in Payson that was 4 days long, and after that camp, our whole team dynamic changed. It was one of the best things I think our team has ever done. We were such a close family after that, and it felt so amazing to be a part of it. After that camp, our new coach took over, and I was so excited. I knew that coaching might be a little different, but I was excited and I was hopeful for a good season. It was my first season and I was excited. But quickly things shifted for the bad. Communication was no longer something that existed. There were no emails back. There were major typos in training plans that completely changed what we thought would happen, and the morning of practice, she completely scrapped it. There would be no communication physically. We would come up to her, ask a question, and she would be dead silent. She would nod or shake her head. And a team and coach connection was unattainable. We couldn't bond. She didn't have a coaching personality. She wasn't energetic. She didn't know what to say, and we couldn't rely on her for help. We couldn't trust her training. And over the season, a lot of girls got seriously injured, including me. I would come up to her and say, "Hey, what can I do? I'm in a lot of pain and it hurts to run. I don't know what to do. I don't want to quit." And she would say, "Well, we'll figure something out." And that would be the end of it. And a lot of girls came up to me because I'm known as one of the girls that gets injured a lot. And they'd come up to me and be like, "Hey, what are you doing for injuries?" And I would say, "I don't know." And we'd share these frustrations and not know what to do. Our training wouldn't get anywhere because she wouldn't help us and we couldn't get information. And overall, we couldn't do anything. I had to skip meets and I couldn't do much. And if there's anything you get from this, I hope that you can look into further coaching and look into a coach that has empathy and that has knowledge of the sport. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Nichols.
Hi, I'm Matt Nichols. I'm a parent of a sophomore at Desert Vista as well as a junior at Desert Vista. 7th year of being parents at DV, and we'll have 10 years under our belt by the time it's all said and done. I didn't prepare anything because I've been through this process since the end of July. This all started off, and I'm so proud of these girls for coming up and talking about these things, and it's quite unfortunate that they have to take time out of their day to come down here and talk about these things. My wife and I started the process with emails back in the 22nd of July after the first camp that they had. And we just saw this colossal shift with the girls and what had happened. There was pushback on the hiring, but hey, these things happen. Same like all parents. Hey, you're going to have bad coaches, you're going to have bad teachers, you're going to have bad bosses. This is how life works. We went through this whole process, and I had a lot of people listen to us. I saw a lot of note-taking and, intuitive questions and nodding and, "Oh, we're going to get back to you and we have a plan." And that's all I ever heard. That's all we ever got out of the whole thing. The only time we actually got a response was when we'd have to reach back out again. So ultimately, we have a coach that took a job that has no business coaching. The same as myself taking the job. I would never take it because I don't have the experience in it, neither does this particular coach. You've taken all these girls that wake up at 5 a.m. You have an amazing, the best way I can put it is this. If this was the football program, and I have a son that plays football, if you brought in a head coach and he said, oh, well, I played football in high school, everyone in this room knows what the parents would do and what would happen and how quickly it would happen. But for some reason, there's a stigma with cross country that, it's not really a sport, they just go out and run. Well, you're going to see the byproduct of that and where we've been with this thing. I'm amazed at the pushback from administration. It's really unfortunate. One of the coaches involved, my daughter had an amazing experience with and really looked up to her. And now as a result of us reaching out and trying to get this problem solved, she gets a cold shoulder from a teacher that she really enjoyed, simply because her parents had the audacity to try and look out for the girls in the cross-country team. So ultimately, bad hires are made. It happens all the time. Everybody sitting here has a real job, and everybody understands how these things work. And if you're not getting it done, you're not there anymore. But we've dumbed everything down for this coach. We've given her every opportunity to step up and do something, and nothing has happened. So at this point, we're kind of throwing our hands up, and this is our last hurrah here to see if we can't get a difference made. And hopefully we can get in a coach that will do a service to these girls that they deserve. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Ava Whitham.
My name is Ava Witham. I'm a freshman at Desert Vista High School, and I just wanted to express my feelings about this 2022 cross-country season. During the summer, I had really high hopes, and I really felt myself being accepted into a team. We had a summer camp, and that's where I think we all started really feeling like a family. Our new coach, Jessica Shearer, went to this camp, but she wasn't a huge part of it. Her coaching started after. I wasn't expecting everything to be the same, and I knew there was going to be some change. But from the start, I noticed very standoffish behavior from Coach Shearer, and it felt like she was very disconnected from us. I thought she just needed time to adjust, but that was not the case. This behavior continued, and she failed to learn our names after even a month of coaching. After the summer, my mileage decreased by a lot. I had high hopes when it got to racing season, though. My first meet went well for me, but then after, many girls started having injuries. Coach failed to respond to many of them in a timely manner or at all. She told parents at the beginning of the season that preventing injuries is my #1 priority. So asking the girls if they are broken is going to fix it? The terms that she used makes absolutely no sense. When I ask her questions, she doesn't have an answer. Now, I don't expect my coach to have all the answers, but I do feel like a coach should be open and honest and tell me that she will find the answer for me. A coach should have some basic knowledge of the sport that they are coaching, and Jessica has 0 experience. After our meet in California, I started having pain, and I told her, and all she told me to do is cut back my minutes in practice. And there was no other advice given to me. From then on, she just asked me, "Are you feeling okay?" Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with asking that, but it becomes a problem when her response to me was just, "Oh." I don't feel uplifted at all. I don't feel motivated by her. And this is my very first cross-country season, and also the first time I've ever had a panic attack in my life, the first time I've questioned whether I want to continue running, and I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't come to practice worried and scared because I don't know what to expect. I feel unsafe at times, and there was a time when my mileage increased by 10 miles in just a week. And I'm very, very disappointed with how this season went, and I'm not happy with how me and my teammates are being treated.
Thank you. There is no further public comment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mitterville, and thank you all for coming and speaking up. Right, we will continue with consent agenda. Items F1 through F22, I move approval. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we'll go into teaching and learning with the Proficiency and Growth Achievement on ACT. Dr. Mandeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, executive team. I'm going to ask Dr. Lexick to come forward, and Mrs. Hilgers, you're going to chime in at your station. Okay. As you all know, we've just received and gone through the ACT test prep and practices, and then now the letter grades. So we wanted to bring some more information to understand what the ACT means to us from the state level, but to focus more on proficiency and growth, because those are the two key areas that are highlighted with the achievement on the ACT, among others, but these are the two areas that we want to highlight today. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Lexick.
Thank you. President Garcia, board members, Superintendent Mandeville, executive team, and guests, thank you for having me here tonight to present on proficiency and growth on the ACT. So we're going to go through a number of different reports in this presentation. So we're going to look at how we use cohort data to have individualized consultations with students and guide students' progress towards the state level test in April. We're going to look at ways that we can identify students that are increasing in their scores, those that are maintaining and then declining in performance, as well as looking at groups and subgroups of students or pockets of students that are not making expected growth, and then how we intervene and provide support in those areas. So before I go into those reports, I just wanted to outline the difference between proficiency and growth, because at the last board presentation, we really focused heavily on proficiency. And so today, really our focus is looking at growth. So proficiency refers to attainment of a score in one point in time. So we've looked at, if you remember at the last board meeting, just the percentage of students that have met the proficiency cut score in English and math. Growth, on the other hand, examines how students learn or grow over multiple assessments. So it tracks student progress and assesses whether they're making improvement irrespective of that proficiency cut score. Both data points are really important because we want to see how students are growing and progressing, but we also want to make sure that they're reaching the benchmarks that have been set at each grade level. So while during our presentation last time, we focused on proficiency, but Mrs. Hilgers did mention that we have this cohort report that we have created for teachers to use that really looks at how students are performing from one year to the next. So this particular report looks at student performance from 10th grade English to 11th grade English, but we have this report for all areas assessed on the ACT, and we look at it from 9th to 10th grade as well. I just chose for us to focus on English from 10th to 11th. So if you look at this on the left-hand side, 10th grade performance, you'll see at or above benchmark, and then does not meet benchmark. And then right here, you'll see 11th grade scores in that same categories, does not meet benchmark and at or above benchmark. So if we look at this red area, this indicates that we have 447 students that were at or above benchmark in 10th grade. And then when they took the test in 11th grade, they were below the benchmark. So they're identified in red because they are decreasing in their scores. They have dropped in performance. This yellow bar over here shows that we have 473 students that did not meet the benchmark in 10th grade, and they continue not to meet the benchmark in 11th grade. So they're denoted in yellow because they're maintaining performance. In green, we have 41 students that did not meet the benchmark in 10th grade, but did so in 11th grade, and so they are increasing or rising. And then we have another large group of students that were at or above benchmark in 10th grade, and they continue to be at or above benchmark in 11th grade. So this yellow is the yellow that we want. This kind of area is where we want to focus and identify what is happening, why are students either decreasing or maintaining. So So if we were so teachers have access to these pivot tables in School City, and when they log in, they can look at this data by all periods or by individual periods. And so when they click into these boxes, they see students that they have in front of them in class. So if I was to click on this red link right here, it would bring me to a screen that looks like this. So these would be individual student names. This would be their grade 10 performance, their grade 11 performance. So it shows you the percent correct that a student got on the test in 10th grade, and then how they did on the test in 11th grade. So it allows you to quickly identify students that have made a decrease in performance. And in instructions and videos we've created for teachers, we encourage them to have consultations with students to identify what is happening. Because the 10th grade test is shorter in length, but it isn't more difficult than the 11th grade test. So we really wouldn't expect to have significant drops in student performance. And so it would be a good practice to have conversations with students to see why this decline in performance and what additional assistance they might need. If we clicked on that yellow group, the one that went from they didn't meet the benchmark in 10th grade and they're not meeting the benchmark in 11th grade, I wanted to show you why it's important to look at individual student performance, because if we just group students in this group, you wouldn't be able to identify these different reasons of why their performance stays the same. So this first student, you'll see they had 33% in grade 10, and they achieved 1.3% in grade 11. So this is probably a motivational issue. Maybe it's a technology issue. Maybe the student didn't get to finish. Something potentially happened where there was such a huge decline in performance. And so that would be a great conversation to have with that student. The student at number 2, you'll see that they went from 15.6 to 40, I can't see very well, 46.7. So they have made some significant growth. However, they stayed in the same subgroup or the same category. They're still not meeting the benchmark, but they're making significant gains. So that's a great conversation to have with the student, to say, hey, you're doing everything right. Continue on this progress, and by the time you reach spring, you're very likely passing. The student number 3 went from 13.3 to 50.7. This student is only 1 to 2 items away from being proficient. And so that's a really encouraging conversation to have with that student, that even though you're not meeting the benchmark, you're very close to doing so. So are there any questions on these sets of reports? Because then we're going to move into reports on growth. Or do you want me just to wait till the end? Okay. So we've looked at the growth data. We looked at ways to identify students that are maintaining, declining, and increasing in performance. So this next set of slides is going to look at how we identify students that are not making expected growth. So what you saw in that previous set of slides was really looking at just 2 points in time. How did the student do in 10th grade versus 11th grade? These calculations utilize all the data that we have on students. So it really looks at student past performance on multiple assessments. So we include the Aspire test, the Horizon Fall, Winter, Spring assessment, and the Spring ACT test. And we calculate this propensity score that combines a student performance over time. And then we use that score to predict where we think, based on their prior history of how they have performed, they will likely score in the spring. And then once we get the spring data, we compare their actual score to their projected score. If they exceed what we projected based on their historic performance, then they have positive growth. If they achieved as we predicted, then they have just average growth. And then if they underperformed and they performed lower than their predicted score based on the historic performance that they have shown, then they have below average growth. So really, when we look at growth measures, and I know that Dr. Mendeville just mentioned the A through F letter grades, they, at the state level, growth is a component of the 8th ref letter grade. And in that calculation, students are compared to how they're performing in comparison to others across the state. And so it's really a ranking or a norming way. Are you outperforming other students that have scored similarly to you in the past? These measures and reports that I'm going to show to you right now really look at this individual local growth. So we compare students' performance to their prior performance. We don't compare them to others, we compare them to themselves. So they get an individualized growth measure that allows us to track their performance over time. So these reports we can use for personalized learning and monitoring student progress. We can identify pockets of students that are not making expected growth and then identify and provide intervention. So MTSS is an important component for utilizing these types of growth reports. We could use it to evaluate district and school improvement, for program evaluation, and also looking for at educational equity and impact. We have many different reports that we could look at. We've selected 2 as examples to show you some, what this data might look like in kind of how we look at it. So this particular report shows student performance across all subjects, so it combines really all data that we have on a student. So you'll look, you can see that we have data, we can report this data down to the school level. It shows you the percentage of students that met the benchmark, the percentage of students that fall into high growth. So these would be students that have exceeded their predicted score that we have based on multiple years of their performance. The percentage of students that are showing expected growth, and then the percentage of students that show low growth. You'll see that we have a key above that allows us to kind of classify this level of growth into categories. So it allows for a really quick overview of which areas are showing either unsatisfactory or lower than expected growth. So in this particular report, you'll see that Tempe Union Online has a red bar. However, we only had 12 students that were included in this analysis. So these reports are really based on last year's data, and as we gather more data and include in these analyses, these projections become much more accurate and allow us to make very detailed decisions. This particular report shows student performance in English, and it allows us to break data by subgroups. So you'll see that the EL subgroup and the parent withdrawn are EL students that qualify for services, but the parents have declined their services. So those would be 2 subgroups that have lower than expected or unsatisfactory growth. But this is English, and they are in an English language program. So I think we've kind of looked at that data before. Native American students stand out as lower than expected growth, so that's a pocket of students that we need to focus on, as well as if you look at IEP, would be our special education students that are showing unsatisfactory growth. So they're growing lower than what our predicted score would indicate that where they should be. This is that same report just looking at math, so you can see how quickly we can identify not only which subgroups, but in which areas they're struggling. So you'll see that English language learners had unsatisfactory growth in English, but they don't have unsatisfactory growth in math. You'll see that Native American students, if you remember from the previous slide, had lower than expected growth in English, but they have expected growth in math. Special education students have unsatisfactory growth in both English and math. So that is an area that we've discussed last time as well, but an area that we're really going to focus on. So you'll see that we have multiple reports that look at both proficiency and growth. And as we gather and accumulate more data, we'll have a much better predictor, and it will allow us to really track how students are growing in time, identify ones that are not on the trajectory to reach proficiency, and then provide interventions to those students. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. All the work that you, your team, and staff members have done to put this together. Board members, comments, questions? Vice President Montero.
Thank you. First, just want to thank you for the presentation, and also wanted to publicly thank you and Ms. Hilgers for sitting down with me last week or the week before to kind of go over some of these questions in depth, and it really just shows how committed you are to this. So thank both of you for that. One question I did have, this is all great information, and I think kind of gets at some of the questions that we were asking about during the previous presentation around ACT, or specifically around kind of how we are measuring that growth and responding to that with our MTSS team, specifically, utilizing the subgroups when we're disaggregating that data like you showed us, which is great. I'm curious if what sharing of information or coordination there might be with some of our feeder districts for our students that are coming into the district, to kind of get a baseline of where they're at and kind of what that process is for students that are coming into our district. Is there coordination there, or what does that look like?
Thank you. That's a great question. At this time, because this is a new tool that we've just created, we don't have feeder school data in there, but we do have a tri-district articulation data sharing agreement with them. So we do get standardized scores from our 8th graders, and so after this testing, we'll include that in our dashboard as well, so that we could look at student progress from really 8th grade on.
So may I just add to the piece that the middle school, the K-8 assessment is different from this assessment. Can you speak a little bit on that? Do you know a little bit about the K-8 assessment?
I know just a little bit about the K-8 assessment, but I know it is, for these growth projections, it doesn't really compare the test itself. It really compares how students are, how far or close they are to proficiency. And so the assessment that I think is used in K through 8 is similar to kind of the prior AZ Merit assessment that we used to have. So it's a little bit different than the Aspire and the ACT, but it could be included in here. So we will definitely do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much. Member Braza.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. There's a lot of data that I'm sure to get to this point, and organizing it takes a lot of time. As far as slide 6, looking at it, just more of a general question for someone like me that looking at a percentage for grade 10, percentage for grade 11 may not be as clear. So if I'm like maybe a staff member looking at this, is there the ability for them to resort criteria? So that way maybe like if I'm looking at the difference between grade 10 and 11, for me, it probably makes it clearer for me if I were a teacher, if I saw the rate of change. So looking at it as plus 5% growth or negative 15%, as opposed to 26.7, and then the following year, 28.0, and then discerning that. I think for me, just looking at the difference, that growth criteria is probably more clear in my head. Is there that ability? Just curious, more of a general question.
There is. So there's different views in School City that you could use. That's actually not one of my favorite views, so I didn't show that one, but it does, there is 3 different tabs that a teacher could look at, and one of them does look at the difference. They could also download this into an Excel file that gives them the listing of students and their performance, and then they can sort and do different things with it. But yes, the answer is yes, there is.
I appreciate that, and I didn't think of the Excel aspect. That would probably be something that I would utilize for my own, just to analyze and geek out on some of the stuff and run regressions and look at different stuff like that. It's just the data, raw data like that is really interesting to me. So as far as slide 8, just more or less looking at the past performance, actual performance, and the projected growth overall. I imagine it's not as linear as the image. So that growth, I imagine some have more of a curve shape with maybe an excelling forward lift towards the end, or some maybe more rounded upward with a slowing growth aspect. So essentially with that in mind, how would I as a student be able to keep track of what my growth is, considering that I may excel early on and then peak out later on, or vice versa? Is there the ability for the student to just kind of keep on task, or how dependent is that student on the teacher to be able to convey that information?
So right now, they're dependent on the teacher, and actually, we haven't really shared this level of detail with the teachers either. But the reports that are available that we're going to kind of sift through and try to identify the easiest to use are at a student level, and then they show students what is their predicted score, where we think you're going to be, and then what is your ranking within the district, and then it also compares students to the national percentile. So I think those are great conversations to have with students, with the understanding that this is only predictive analysis, and you can outperform anything that this model does, because it's really up to you. So that is our long-term goal, is to share this data with students. We just haven't to this point.
I appreciate that focus to be able to share it with them in some respect, just because of what you mentioned. You know, I know we have a lot of ways for students to be able to, and parents, to be able to look at growth of their individual student. And I know that this is new, and so I think the only other question is just more or less how the implementation's going. How are you feeling about it, and what's kind of the effect of how new data will be implemented? Is that going to be the teacher's responsibility? Because I know there's going to be a lot of data to be implemented as we continue to grow. I'm just curious how we implement that, or add that additional data as we continue to grow. And is this part of professional development, or can it be, you know, for those hours? Just because I think it's something that if we can really instill the mindset within our staff that this is a great tool, and we'll figure out all the concerns and kind of give them clarity so that way it's more user-friendly in their eyes, I think we'll get more usage out of it. So that's why I mentioned the professional development. But how's the implementation going and the addition of new data as we go?
So we're in early stages of implementation right now. I think we're looking at the multitude of reports that we could create and identifying the best ones to start rolling this out to teachers, with training on how to interpret this data as well. We're reaching out to some other districts to see best practices of what has worked, and which ones would you start with when you start doing these types of analysis.
I'm going to ask that
where we
Mrs.
are.
Hilgers could add to that.
Thank you, Dr. Mendeville. One of the things that we've looked at is developing our administrators professionally. So after the last couple governing board meetings, and there was a great interest about how we motivate our students to do well on these assessments, we looked at this. And you know, when you look at these reports, and as a teacher, for you to be able to see this and really have those individual consultations with kids, it builds relationships, just like what Member James and I were speaking about in the last governing board meeting. But for a student, I'd want to know how far do I need to go to reach proficiency? And for a teacher to find out what happened, why didn't the kid do well on this assessment? So I think there's a great opportunity for teachers to take class time. I would take a whole class period to sit there and meet individually with my students, really get to know them and find out what happened. And the other thing is, I would look at what are the areas that I need to sit there and provide interventions in my class. As an administrator, I'd look at groups of kids. Which are the ones that maybe weren't motivated to do well? Which are the ones that made significant gains? Which ones are this close to being proficient? And I would look at and have discussions with my MTSS team to be able to design interventions on a school level that way. So I think the first thing is to we train our administrators, have our administrators have those discussions with our teachers. We're trying to increase that data literacy of our teachers so that they can guide their instructional decisions on a daily basis. And I think then Dr. Alexic has created a video for our teachers so they can refer back to it. Maggie Fountain, Dr. Alexic, and I, we go out to the different sites and provide different trainings to our admin team and to our DLs and so forth as needed. But we're really trying to roll this out and be very thoughtful about how we can use this information that we have in our dashboard to make really significant gains with our kids.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And please convey my thanks to all teaching and learning. I know this is something that you have all been excited about. I'm very excited about it too. I think it's very foundational to what we're doing and moving forward educationally, you know, for our district. So this is a wonderful tool. So thank you.
Member James.
Thank you so much for all of this information. I have a quick question about slide 9, when you said that when they're looking at the growth of our students, they're comparing it to the growth. Are they comparing just the scores, like the proficiency scores, or are they looking at the growth, comparing it to other students like them, like you said?
Oh, for the A through F letter grade?
Yeah, so I know they're going to be comparing our students to students around the state, right? And I guess what is the percentage that they're looking at for the proficiency versus the growth in determining that letter grade? And then how are they comparing? It's easy to compare proficiency, say, for like my expected proficiency on this exam, but are they also comparing my expected growth to another student's expected growth? Like how does that whole equation work?
Yeah, so in A through F, 30% is based on just straight proficiency. And 20% of the A through F model is based on growth. So 50% is really based on the state level assessment. Growth in A through F is how the state calculates that is they look at the last 2 years of data on a student and they put students in these groupings of students that have scored like them in the last 2 years. And then they compare how you as an individual student did compared to your group. Did you outperform your group, in which case you get high growth? Are you performing as your group or are you underperforming? And that determines your growth. So it's really comparing you as an individual student to similar students with similar performances across time.
That's interesting. Okay. Thank you. That clarifies it. And then when you're looking at the data that was disaggregated by subgroups, which is really helpful, what are the plans to find best practices, research-based methods to look at each of those groups, say, like, look at our Native students and say, okay, what are the things that, like you said, you're looking at around to see what has worked and so on. When it comes to these, what are the plans to look at each group and look at the targeted, practices and make sure we're using best practices to get those groups where you want them?
I think we're in the collection of that right now, and I don't know, Ms. Hilgers, if you want to speak more, but I know that Maggie is looking at national best practices and compiling some of that data so that we do have resources for particular groups that we're going to identify here as needing additional support.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Today, Dr. Alexic came in and shared information with the executive team about the A through F label and how they calculate that. One of the things we're going to be doing is Dr. Alexic and I are going to be meeting with the site teams so they can individually take a look at their own school, how their subgroups are performing, and take a look at their site action plans and even revise and refine them to target to certain groups. So as Dr. Alexic stated, Maggie is looking at all the resources for different groups. I think we need to take a look at certain classes that maybe certain kids are taking and really target those ACT preparation and test taking skills in a lot of those courses. When you look at our special ed, I've met with our special ed team and they've already targeted an action plan. One of those has to do with teaching instructional strategies. The other one has to do is going into our resource classrooms and really doing test-taking strategies with our students and making sure that they are accessing standards at grade level. So we've got things in place. We need to monitor to make sure that we are doing all the things that are in our action plan and see if we're making growth.
Great, and of course, what teaching those strategies, right, to different groups is going to need to look different for each group. What's going to be highly effective for our special education students or our English language learners, those test-taking strategies, then how to teach that and how to communicate that is going to look different. So those are the kind of strategies I'm interested in, how we're researching those and how we're going to be implementing those different strategies for our students and those subgroups. For sure.
If you'd like, Teaching and Learning would be happy to share more information about the A through F with you and maybe some of the instructional strategies that we found when doing this research.
That would be
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you. And then, do you mind, you said 50% is that ACT, proficiency and growth. What is the other 50% so we can clarify what those?
The components of the A through F.
Yeah.
20% is the CCRI, the College and Career Ready Indicator, that I think we did a presentation on that. 20% is graduation rate. And within that 20%, 10 is based on your 4-year, 5, 6, and 7-year graduation rate, and another 10% is based on improvement from the prior year. So that makes up the 20% for graduation rate. And then 10% for English language proficiency and growth on the Zella. I think that's it. I think that adds up to 100, right?
Bonus point opportunities.
Oh, and then, right, so that would add up to 100, and then there's additional points that a school can get through bonus points. One of them is for special education enrollment. If a school exceeds the percentage of special education students that they have compared to the state average, they get bonus points. Exceeding the state average on the AZ-SCI assessment gives us additional bonus points, and then testing 95% of our 9th graders on the Aspire ACT gives the school bonus points as well.
Thank you so much. I just want to acknowledge all the hard work that has gone into the letter grades and the release for our district and all of our teams. I know that there's a lot of progress and growth, and it's exciting to see all that work come to fruition and seeing that success. So taking a moment to acknowledge that. I just have a request with respect to the data, and thanks for, providing this breakdown. I'm just curious as to let's say for English as an example, if we're able to break down and have it for each school. I'm just curious to see how that looks like for our subgroups. I know Ms. Hookers had mentioned earlier and evaluating and looking into that, but I think it would be helpful for us to have a better
Absolutely.
understanding. Thank you.
Because all the schools are going to be getting this, and we're preparing what is the best way to navigate a lot of this information that's going to be more helpful and useful they can use today and take with it from that. Can I just make one little comment on, I forget what chart it was, I think just the work where we identify, this is yet another metric indicator that tells us where we need to put some focus. And not surprisingly though, I think if we focus on, because there's not been much of an emphasis on a state assessment until recently. And so I think that's part of what you see some here, because even with among our teachers, until recently, there's been more of an emphasis because we were at the state's mercy as they changed things from year to year and didn't give us information. Well, now we know it's here, and I want to commend our teachers for really responding last spring. I mean, it was tough because we were going through a lot last spring, but we've embraced it this year, and I think with the different targeted groups of students, the best practices are going to yield, because some of it is just paying attention to these standards and having that high expectation for our EL kids, our native kids, our special ed kids. And if that has to be part of their IEP in some way, shape, or form, and it may not be or may be, those are things that we need to address. And those are the refining elements that we're going to be participating in with as we look at the school goals and as we look at long-term goals. For a lot of reasons, okay? So I just want you to know we want to give you this very clear, broad picture, but we're going to hone in on a lot of details with the school sites in the best way they can navigate a lot of this information to benefit our students.
Thank you so much. Member James?
Yes, and one of the things when we look at the way that our state is measuring our schools, I always come back to the fact that I think it's so disappointing that there's no, real qualitative analysis. There's no looking at the climate and culture of our schools. We're missing the, camaraderie that our kids have in their arts classes and on the athletic fields in our schools. And they don't walk through and they don't see the artwork that our kids have done. And they don't see the unique programs that our schools offer. And so I hope that our teachers, when we're talking about all of this, I just don't want that to get lost. Like, I want them to know how much we appreciate all that they do, and that when our kids leave our schools, that they are more than just a number, they are more than just a letter, and our teachers are not defined by the letters that their schools are given, because they're giving so much more to our students than test-taking abilities. And they are giving the knowledge that they need in those exams. Yes, they get the reading and writing skills and math skills, computation skills, critical thinking skills, but they are connecting with their kids and they're building relationships and they're teaching students how to think and how to make adult decisions and become independent humans. And when they walk through their hallways and they have social interactions with their peers and they're learning how to be human, like, our schools are all so good at that. When we walk through the halls of our schools, we feel that. And we're not graded on that. And I hope that when we're talking to our teachers about this, that we don't forget to commend what they do every day for our kids, and that is relationship building and experience building and social aspect of what a teacher is and what a teacher can be and what a school should be. And I think, again, we're really lucky in Tempe. We are a family of schools. We work on climate and culture. We work on finding things for our students, so they feel like they belong in our schools. So this is all amazing. And I know we're doing what's best for our kids. We want to make sure our schools are all thriving and getting good grades and all of that. But I mean, seriously, if they walk the halls of our schools, we'd all have A+, because we have such a well-rounded approach, I think, in Tempe Union. So I hope we can keep that message for our teachers as well. I don't want any teachers to feel like those other things are not as important and that they're not being recognized, because we're doing, like, they're kicking butt. They're awesome. And, I can say now I'm a parent, I'm so happy to be a part of Tempe Union in that capacity. So thank you for all of this work, and just for our teachers, thank you for everything they do that's above and beyond all of this too, because it's as important, if not more.
Thank you so much, Member James. All right, that concludes G1, so thank you so much. All right, we'll continue on with board policies, starting with H1, policy IJL, library material selection and adoption for first reading and adoption. Dr. Mendeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, executive team. This is as a result of House Bill 2439. It instructs school district and charter school governing boards to adopt procedures that provide parents access to a school's library collection and a list of books and materials their child borrows. And so this begins January 1, 2023. We have, I think I said in the prior meeting, we have a program called Destiny, and that provides this information. It gives a full catalog of an inventory of our libraries, and that's also available online for our families to have. And so I just want to make that clear. And that's what this hat says basically here, is that we provide public review period for books and materials purchased after January 1, 23. And administration recommends the approval of policy IJL.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendeville. Board members, any thoughts, questions? Okay. Member Brazel.
Just a recommendation to the board that we maybe just put it out as first reading and go through the traditional process of having the second reading. I know there's some staff members that would like to have a discussion with the district just for clarification. And while the draft is up, IJL, it's not a bad opportunity for our library staff to provide input and see if they there's room for them to provide some more context or input on the policy while we're also changing it for state statute requirements. That's all I have.
Vice President Montero.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I heard some similar concerns from Member Barraza, and I think that conversation needs to happen, but I don't know if that's because this is just the policy saying the superintendent needs to establish these procedures. I think that discussion is going to happen with the regulation. So I think the policy itself, you know, I don't think we'll be changing any language there. I think the regulation is where most of the questions that I have are coming from, and I know we can't ask those questions because the regulation is not on the agenda. And so I'd ask that if we can have some of those conversations, Dr. Mendenville, before you put that regulation in place, but I think the policy is fine as it is for now.
Absolutely, and that, I understand the request, Member Barraza. It is strictly out of HB 2439 that within the policy. The details are going to flow in the regulation coming forward, and with any regulation, particularly if it's involving a particular department or position or teacher or employee, we're going to consult most definitely with our media center. In fact, we just had this discussion this morning in the executive team that we would be assembling our librarians and our media center resource folks to begin looking at what this is going to look like in greater detail to gather their input, because they're going to be the actual implementers should that arise when someone does request. So I would agree that as a policy, it needs to, there's not going to be much or what we would recommend to be added, since this is coming directly from ASB 8 as well.
Member Brus.
I'm happy to approve it here tonight if that's what the board should choose. I just look at it as the spirit of the first read, second read by tradition is to allow for the implementation of feedback from the community and staff, and with no urgency. I don't necessarily see the need to rush the process, but you know, if the board feels comfortable and so is the district, they have my support. I just don't see the need why we can't just go through both readings without that urgency. That's all.
Thank you so much, Member Brosnan. But I do want to distinguish that this is within the regular process because it is directly from statute. And to Vice President Montero's point is that this is primarily within the regulation that questions have arisen. So I do want to allow the time and space for that. And based off of our own policy for passing this, I do feel comfortable moving forward with adoption. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions before we continue? All right, then I move approval of H1. May I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have policy IJNC, resource centers, media centers, and school libraries for first reading and adoption. Dr. Mendenville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board. This is, again, in tandem with House Bill 2439 that instructs school district governing boards to adopt procedures that provide parent access to a school's library collection and such. But if we open this up, and I want to just comment because we also have board policies that, board policy that permits us to do an adoption and approval in one reading, and that is through policy BGB. I say that only because, and we never recommend or try to never recommend to do it in a first reading and adoption unless it's pretty much basic and simple right out of statute. So, but I do appreciate the first and second read process when discussion is required. This is the part where, again, parental access to library books and materials. The parents may access the school's library collection. We've talked about that through, they just need to, what we are trying to do right now, because we have a program through Destiny, we just need to have the process now. And again, that's what we're going to be working through, because when we do get families on how they can request access, do they go directly to the librarian? Do they go to the assistant principal? So do you want to add to that, Dr. Wilson?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Mendenville, members of the governing board. So currently, we had this in place. You can go to any of the school's websites and go to the library page, and you can access things in there, and then a parent could pull what the student is looking at. I believe there is an exhibit that goes with this, so that parents could submit to the school, and then that's where they could pull that information.
Thank you. And part of what my emphasis is how are we communicating that process to families, I guess. And so I think it's there, and I'm glad we were ahead of the game from that angle. So we will be working on what's the best way to communicate that so that they are clear on what our process is.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Vanderbilt. Board members, any comments or questions on this item? All right, hearing none, seeing none, I move approval of H2. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have H3, policy IKF, graduation requirements for first reading and adoption. Dr. Mendenville.
This is as a result of action on House Bill 2632. I want to address just a couple of changes that teaching and learning, they're not changes, they're actually refinements and stating what we do today. Under the category graduation requirements, may be met as follows: by earning credits through correspondence or online courses. We're saying and or by passing appropriate courses at the college or university level. If the courses are determined to meet standards and criteria established by the board and in accord with ARS 15701.01. So we do this already. We want to have this in writing. And also in D, by the transfer of credits as described in policy JFABC. So the transfer of credits. And then F, an out-of-state transfer, because we have those situations as an open enrolled system here in Arizona, that a student is not required to pass the competency test to graduate if the student has successfully passed a statewide assessment test on the state adopted standards that they're from their previous state. So the reciprocity with that. We added social studies on the second page. If you scroll 3.0, I just wasn't there. We no longer call it free enterprise, we call it economics. So just some updating here. And then the 3 credits of science in preparation for proficiency at the high school level on a state required test. But the statute is more about the civics test for the graduating class of 2025. They have to get a 60 out of 100 score on the civics portion of the naturalization test used by United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. But then with the beginning class of 2026, they must reach a 70 out of 100. The state board requirement for economics is at least 1/2 or 0.5 of the course credit. We will then be providing that information to the Department of Education on the students who are passing that. Percentage of pupils who pass correctly, the minimum number of questions, and so on. So we're through teaching and learning and through the research and evaluation department, we're developing a mechanism with our programs to report that to the Department of Ed. A lot of work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vanderbilt. Board members, any comments or questions on this item? All right, hearing none, seeing none, I move approval of H3. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have H4, policy IMD, school ceremonies and observances for second reading. Dr. Mendenville.
Yes, and this was a great example of a second read where we thought we would be able to do it in one reading. However, there were some questions around elements to, yeah, I know, but I'm looking for what's the law there? Well,
it's from HB 2707.
Yeah, 2707. So we're striking those as recommended and just stating specifically the law for that we would do the moment of silence no more than 2 minutes, and that's already been passed. But the recommendation is to remove what is stricken on the page 1 and 2.
And just for clarification, because it's not required,
Correct, it's not required.
All right. I move approval of any comments or questions on this item? All right, I move approval of H4. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Last one, we have H5, policy JRR, student surveys for first reading and adoption. Dr. Maddenville.
Thank you. This is again in response to House Bill 2161, which amended ARS 15117, which gives districts our charter school administration of student surveys relating to 14 specific topics. So it's basically reminding us very specifically that no survey that solicits personal information about a pupil regarding any of the listed categories in that statute, ARS 15117A, even though we're recommending to strike them, but that is part of that statute, that students need to opt in to basically any survey that we administer today.
All right, thank you, Dr. Monroe. Board members, comments or questions? All right, hearing none, seeing none, I move approval of H5. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Also, there's a typo in that public comment, or public content on that item. Next one, business services, I1, for the approval of memorandum of understanding between Arizona ACES Consortium and Tempe Union High School District 213. Dr. Mandeville.
Thank you. This agreement is between the Arizona Adverse Childhood Experiences Consortium and our district for the Resiliency Empowerment Project, REP. It's funded through the Maricopa County of Public Health, and they will be providing training for our teachers on trauma-informed practices and support trauma-sensitive schools. They did select staff from Marcos Geneza, the Innovation Center, and Tempe Union Online. We're hoping to expand that over to the rest of the schools as we learn more about what exactly they will be doing, but also it's in tandem with what our priorities are as a district anyway. So we're going to share a lot of the same information, but want this to transcend to all of our schools. We recommend approval of this MOU.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monroe. Board members? I know you know the drill by now. All right. I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm excited for this collaboration, particularly because it's based on trauma-informed practices and supporting trauma-sensitive schools. So at this time, I move approval of I1. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have I2, approval of collaboration agreement between Arizona State University and Tempe Union High School District for AZR3 grant program. Dr. Vanderbilt.
Thank you. The Arizona Department of Education awarded ASU through ESSER3 set aside statewide recovery quite a bit of money, actually. And so they created a program called AZR3. And the purpose is to increase the number of low-income students who are prepared to enter and succeed in post-secondary education experiences. We will be bringing this support and collaborative effort with ASU to our Tempe High, McClintock, Marcos, and Mountain Point. The focus and partnership will increase the college readiness and enrollment, increase graduation rates. These are all areas that complement the work that we are doing. So any help that we can get, particularly from ASU in this manner, and educate students and families about post-secondary options, preparation, and financing. It's a partnership grant, and we're just excited to have them on board. They have tutors that they will be hiring, along with someone who will be on staff coordinating a lot of these efforts. We're excited because it just works beautifully with not just our MTSS, but the support that we have around post-secondary preparation for our students.
That's good. Thank you so much, Dr. Monroe. Board members? Member Braza.
I just want to first thank ASU, the district, and everyone involved to have this a reality as a part of our district. Other than that, I just want to encourage the community to pull up the PDF of this document, ASU AZ R3, so that way they can read it. It's really good. There's obligations of ASU that they're committing to. Everything from supervising student activities consistent with district and district school expectations, coordinating activities with district programs, reimbursement of transportation from ASU to our district, financial support and develop and carry forward academic intervention and college-going initiatives and grant objectives. It's a really good read, so I encourage the community to read up on it, this collaboration agreement, and see, what it really is about, and I think you'll be very proud. That's all.
Oh, great recommendation.
Thank you so much, Member Barraza. Board members, any other comments or questions? All right, then I move approval of I2. May I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have Human Resources, J1, termination of certificated teacher, Dr. Mendenhall.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board and executive team. Administration recommends that the governing board terminate the employment of certificated teacher Paul Coinas for cause as set forth in the statement of charges pursuant to ARS 15539.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Mendenhall. I move approval of J1 for termination of certificated teacher. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. Any discussion on this item? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have K1, request for future agenda items. As a reminder, this is for information, not for discussion or taking legal action. At this time, are there any board members who would like to put anything for a request for future agenda items? I'm watching these buttons. All right, then we will move right along to communications from governing board members with L1. Who would like to start? We're almost there. Go for it.
Okay, just really quick, there was a lot going on, but with the holidays, I hope everyone had wonderful holidays this past October. I went to the I went to the first robotics competition where Corona robotics team and Mountain Points both competed. It's a great experience. I think everyone should really try to go and watch those competitions. They're light years beyond what I ever imagined a robotics competition would look like, and it makes me very proud. And they did wonderful, and watching their collaboration, how they work together, they really are really strong teams, and it just shows really what really good teachers can do when they, mentor and they, really have passion, and we support them in these endeavors. So hats off to them. And hats off to Mel Wendell. She's started her doctoral work, and I talked to her at the competition. And part of her doctoral work is to bring partnerships to the district, and so we bonded over that. I thought it's really great that that's her focus. I was able to, I was invited to the Year 2 Criminal Justice class, Lindsay Danskin's class. Their students invited me. It was a wonderful experience. They're very honest, they're very sharp. I've never seen a classroom so much encompassed in respect for one another. I really admire the work that they're doing in the classroom and the relationship that those students have with their SRO, and how honest everyone can be. And that's something that, has been instilled in Desert Vista as a whole. And it was really great to see. I've never had an entire class naturally get up and at the end of speaking, shake my hand and say thank you for coming. It just shows, what real good teachers can do. I also had the fortunate opportunity to meet with Principal Stacy White, DV, and really kind of talk about a lot of the things going on in terms of how we look at academic success, our disciplinary processes, and the difficulties of implementing day-to-day work and being able to make sure that parents and students have the information they need. I really value what she's doing and what the staff is doing at Desert Vista, and I really appreciate the time you took, so thank you, Stacy. I was interviewed by Connected Tempe. That was a fun experience. And what Connected Tempe is doing is they're recording videos of Tempe residents, growing up or otherwise, and trying to create I guess you'd say, a cultural landscape archive record of Tempeans and the work going on. And so what they're doing is recording not just elected officials or people that you know in the community, but everyday people. And I really value what they're doing, because it would have been amazing to have that 100 years ago or at the beginning of Tempe to be able to look at those videos. So all their videos are going to be recorded in the Tempe Historical Museum archive of Tempe City Records. And so it'll be wonderful to look at all the people, community members, their stories from where they grew up, the jobs that they're doing, family life, hobbies and interests, and watching Tempe grow. So, you know, it was an honor to be able to have that experience and have my story recorded, especially being able to talk about my school to prison pipeline experience and where I'm at. I really appreciate that opportunity. And I'm actually hoping to get them connected with some students. They are wanting to get in touch with some digital media students. They have a hard time trying to figure out how to upload and record and maintain those videos on the social media platforms, YouTube and so forth. It's a lot of work. And so I recommended that we reach out and try and connect some students. I think they would have a wonderful time being a part of that process and archiving for the historical record. Other than that, I wish everyone well, and thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Member President. Member James.
Go down the line.
We try every time.
Right. So I got to go to the Corona Marching Band Invitational and hand out some awards, which was always fun. Thank you so much for just supporting the arts so heavily over there. The band is incredible, and it was a blast. And I actually, one of the marching band drum majors from Dobson was my student at Pomeroy, and he was this huge adult. He came up to me, Miss James, I had you in 5th grade music. So it was very cute, super exciting. And we got a little selfie to send to his band teacher, because, you know, she had been a drum major. I said, look, here you go, you did it. So that was a lot of fun. And then I want to say it's Native American Heritage Month. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to celebrate this month, and hopefully we can embrace those in our schools. I know that Valerie Molina does a wonderful job making sure that these celebrations occur. And it's also Trans Awareness Month. I know we had a resolution that in our district we're gonna make sure that we are recognizing and celebrating our trans students, staff, community, and supporting them. And then also I know, Member Barraza, you participated in the forum in Guadalupe. The Pasquiaki Youth Council hosted the school board candidates in Guadalupe for the first time and moderated the event, which was really exciting to see a student-led forum in Guadalupe for the first time. So I appreciate Ismael for making that happen and for figuring out the space, and hope to see more events like that from our students. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member James. Vice President Montero.
Thank you. I don't have too much more to add. I had the chance to attend the Strategic Goal 2 Committee 2 weeks ago, so I want to thank Roland for his leadership. And I'm curious to see how those discussions will be carried over into the next strategic plan and what that'll look like next year. So thank you for that, and thank you to everyone for your leadership in those strategic goal committee meetings. I know they've been meeting the past couple of weeks. I also had the chance to attend the ASBA County meeting, Maricopa County meeting with President Garcia and Member Hodge, and get to connect with a bunch of different school board members from across our county. And beyond that, I will recognize, I know I've been bad at it, so I'm gonna start doing this again, gifts and donations. So we have $9,479 to Desert Vista from the Desert Vista Girls Basketball Boosters, $2,550 to Desert Vista from the Desert Vista High School Cheer Booster. We have $1,000 to McClintock from the Thunderbirds Foundation, another $1,000 to Marcos Deniza, another $1,000 to Marcos Deniza, and $1,000 to Mountain Point from the Thunderbirds Foundation. Another $1,000 to Mountain Point from the Arizona Community Foundation, $325 Desert Vista from Paul Callahan, $150 Desert Vista from the Desert Vista High School Thunder Board Association, $72 to Corrine Cardenas, $10 to Marcos Deniza from Blackbaud Giving Fund, and windscreen mesh estimated at $10,000 from Chase Sports. So thank you all to our gifts and donations, and that is all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vice President Montero. He's being a little humble. He, at the county meeting, got elected as my successor to be the co-county director for ASBA. So I do want to congratulate you. We have a Tempe Union representation continuing, so really excited to see that go on, and bittersweet for it to be my last county meeting, as obviously I'm not running for re-election similarly on ASBA. So I'm excited to see Tempe Union continue to thrive and represent. Also wanted to celebrate Trans Awareness Month for students or staff and all of our community members, especially now when so many are under attack, and it's, I think, critically important to make sure we're being supportive and allies. And it's really recognizing National Native American Heritage Month. I'm just grateful for all of our elders in my community and other tribal communities and all the ancestors that came before us to certainly allow me to be here today. So with that, don't forget to vote. Election Day is coming around. Exercise your civic duty. But with that, I have nothing else, Dr. Menderville. Anything from you or the executive team?
No, just to reiterate the importance of Native American Heritage Month, and I know that the schools are acknowledging and celebrating and have different activities for their respective schools. So we're just appreciative that we are in such a very diverse school community, and that we acknowledge and we celebrate that, because it's important to Tempe Union. It's important to me, and I know it's important to this governing board. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Menderville. I'm just checking. No, nothing from the executive team. All right. Everyone's like, we gotta go. Next meeting, regular meeting is November 16th. I move to adjourn. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. We are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good night.